It's a gruesome case that shocked the nation. A Wisconsin woman accused of murdering her lover during sex, dismembering his body, and leaving his head and penis in a bucket for his mother to discover.
Can you imagine, just for a moment, seeing a bucket containing a human head and a penis?
What's more than the chilling details in this disturbing case, the surprising outbursts we've seen from the defendant since her arrest.
You went off on your attorney, Taylor. You went crazy on your attorney.
For more than a year, Law&Crime Network has closely been following the case of 25-year-old Taylor Schabusiness. Ahead of her coming trial, we're taking a look back at what we know so far about the disturbing story. Officials say Schabusiness killed 24-year-old Shad Thyrion by choking him to death while they were having sex in February 2022. After that disturbing act, officials say she dismembered Thyrion's body, leaving his head and penis in a bucket at the bottom of his mother's staircase. She now faces multiple charges, including first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and third-degree sexual assault. According to explicit court documents, Schabusiness told Green Bay investigators, quote, "I liked it," and that she, quote, played with the victim's body for like 2 or 3 hours, performing sexual acts on his genitals and putting a sex toy in his body after he was already dead. Thyrion's body parts were recovered in multiple areas, including Schabusiness's vehicle, a bucket, and a crock pot. After her arrest, Schabusiness allegedly told police they were, quote, going to have fun trying to find all the organs.
She allegedly said to the police, "Good luck finding all of his organs." Holy smokes, who says that?
Forensic death investigator Joseph Scott Morgan tells Law&Crime Network it's a troubling case that stands out because of its bizarre details.
There's a lot of psychopathy in that particular, from that particular perspective, where you're attempting not just to, I think, destroy the individual, simply through this idea of dismemberment, but you're trying to depersonalize them to a great degree.
Morgan says dismemberment has become a more frequent means of disposing of a body in recent years. However, he says a female defendant accused of dismemberment and sexual assault is a rarity.
I think it all centers around the severing of the penis, because that in and of itself is a sexualized event. Again, this goes to a special level of depravity at this point in time. The penis being removed and placed into the bucket with the head. One would ask, well, what was done with the penis after it had been removed, I think.
Before the alleged dismemberment, Schabusiness told investigators she smoked marijuana and meth and shot up trazodone.
This case in particular is very troubling, but it's rooted in substances. You know, when you begin to think about, as you mentioned just a moment ago, there's meth involved and trazodone, and admittedly, they've been ingested. And so that gives you an idea of the world in which the accused, at least, existed in, which is certainly, I think, to say the least, is living on the edge.
After her arrest in February 2022, Schabusiness was booked in the Brown County Jail. She's still being held there on $2 million bond. Last July, she pleaded not guilty to all charges by reason of mental disease or defect.
Mr. Jolly, have you and your client received a copy of the information?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you asking that the information be read out formally in open court?
No, Your Honor, we waive the reading of the information. I've gone over it with my client. It does appear to mirror what is in the complaint. We enter not guilty pleas on all counts.
But despite her plea, Schabusiness's competency has come into question on multiple occasions.
Who's going to represent Ms. Schabusiness in this very important case? And it's getting a little bit confusing. She's making some of these choices to allow it to be confusing on her own. And I'm satisfied that too gives the court concern or reason to doubt the defendant's competency.
Since her arrest, Schabusiness has undergone multiple court-appointed evaluations where she's been found both competent and not competent to stand trial. As recently as last week, an independent forensic psychologist told Judge Thomas Walsh Schabusiness is not competent for her coming jury trial.
My conclusion from observing her reactions to my questions, what she offered during the interview, led me to conclude that yes, she met the criteria for consideration of the special plea, not guilty, NGI, I call it. But then I also concluded at that time she was not competent to proceed to trial. The foundation included her looking in detail at her extensive records going back to childhood, looking at the pattern of her behaviors that began in middle school and escalated in high school, review of her Nicolay inpatient records, psychiatric records, that I think were from 2021, and looking at those records, her jail records, and then just the manner in which she has presented to other evaluators in this case and a previous evaluation she had for custody of her son. And then the observations that I made during the interview with her when you were present showed signs of an active psychotic disorder.
The same expert testified Schabusiness physically lashed out at her during a meeting back in February.
She had thrown a chair at me during the first attempted interview.
Was that on February 7th of 2023?
Yes.
Okay, what happened there?
This was done in a private conference room at the jail. And she was nonverbal. She was nonverbal during all three of these attempted interviews back in February 2023. But the first time she entered the room, didn't greet me, seemed to, she acknowledged I was there and sat down. We both sat down. And I went through, even though she was nonverbal, wasn't talking to me, she would nod her head. So I went through my consent form with her, explaining the reason for my evaluation, her rights to confidentiality, and so on. And she again nodded that she understood. Then when I started the interview, by my usual asking her date of birth, her race, she then suddenly got up from her chair and yelled and went to the corner of the room, picked up fortunately it was a plastic chair, and then she threw it at me across the room. It did not hit me. She then calmly sat back down, and I rang for the guards, and it took them a couple minutes to get there. Meanwhile, I sat back down too, and then asked her about why she had done that. I did notice her physiological response was bizarre, which she didn't have any. After just doing that, being extremely angry, throwing a chair at her evaluator, her defense retained evaluator, she sat there very, no response, just blank face, no physiological response of a person who had just done such a thing.
That's not the first time we've heard of Schabusiness acting out in violence. In fact, she was caught on camera physically attacking her attorney, Quinn Jolly, at a court appearance in February.
You went off on your attorney, Taylor. You went crazy on your attorney.
Law&Crime Network spoke with WBAY reporter and anchor Brittany Schmidt, who was in the courtroom during that attack. She can be seen in the video reacting as Schabusiness lashes out.
It was certainly an attack, and I've been in so many courtrooms and so many cases, and this is the first time I've really seen a defendant physically go after their own attorney. She is wearing a belt, and her handcuffs are attached to that belt, so she didn't have a lot of range of motion, but you do see her lead with her elbow and lunge at her defense attorney, and he puts his hands up to defend himself, and the deputy is very close by, within feet of her. He gets her to the ground rather quickly and maintains control of her. He holds her her down as they call for backup. She did have her foot like wrapped around some cord on his belt. And that's when they said, okay, we need everybody to clear the room because for safety reasons. So everybody was escorted out of the courtroom at that time.
After this outburst in court, Schabusiness's then attorney petitioned to be removed from her case. She's since been assigned a new court-appointed attorney. Though we've yet to see another physical outburst, Schabusiness has displayed a range of emotions in court, from flipping off the judge to almost completely ignoring him.
Ms. Schabusiness isn't here today. She doesn't seem to be engaging directly with the court. I can't see her face. I can see her, but she's not looking into the camera. Now she is. All right.
As the trial date inches closer, some experts note the similarities between Schabusiness's case and Jeffrey Dahmer's, perhaps the most infamous trial out of Wisconsin.
Wisconsin doesn't have the death penalty. All we have to do is reflect back to Jeffrey Dahmer, right? Jeffrey Dahmer did a lot of things that were really over the top. That is a gross understatement on my part. So it's not like that hasn't been visited before, and he had sexualized the dead in that particular case.
At last week's court appearance, Schabusiness's defense-retained psychology expert confirmed the defendant has a, quote, fascination with the serial killer.
She said that she had a thing with Jeffrey Dahmer about a year ago, and just on and on. There were just numerous of these strange comments about Johnny Cash being on the train. She went further into her tangential thoughts about the train, how loud his whistle was, and how Johnny Cash overdosed, apparently, on a train.
Despite that expert's belief that Schabusiness is not competent to stand trial, Judge Thomas Walsh has not yet officially ruled on the matter. Right now, jury selection is expected to begin on Friday, with opening statements slated for Monday. Law&Crime Network will be in Green Bay for the trial and will bring you gavel-to-gavel coverage on our YouTube page. Reporting for Law&Crime Network, I'm Sierra Gillespie.